less like the driving experience. We are currently parked, so you can't really hear the engine too much. Close windows, so we'll have less noise, road noise. Again, this is 2015 BMW X5 XDrive. It is the XDrive version, so it's all-wheel drive. The driving dynamics are a little different from the diesel engine compared to the standard gasoline engine. So we are actually going to go through all three driving mode. Currently in comfort mode, but I will drive that for a little bit and then switch to sport, and then on the way back I will set it to Eco Pro. So this is again comfort mode. It's pretty standard. It's just like anybody or any other BMW in that matter for the most part. They got comfort, Eco Pro, Sport, depends on the model, may have Sport Plus. So overall excuse me, overall it is pretty comfortable driving. Not too much different from the gasoline engine. There is somewhat of a little bit more engine noise compared to the gasoline engine, but as of right now you can't really hear that much. But the difference between the gasoline and the diesel is that diesel has a lot more low-end torque. So from standing still to 40 miles an hour, the diesel seems to have quite a bit of kick right off the bat. So from the second that you put your foot on the accelerator, you get almost instant torque and instant acceleration, and that feels completely different than the 3-liter 6-cylinder turbo that's in majority of the 35i's, for 3, 5, X's. So those tend to have a little bit of turbo lag, just a little bit. There's not a lot, but there's enough that you'll notice. So you have that little initial waiting time, when you put your foot on the accelerator on the gasoline engine. Whereas this one, like I said many times, it's instant, and you got all that torque right at the low bottom end, and they just really want to go. However, with the gasoline engine, you can redline it at about 7,000 RPM. With the diesel, it redlines at about 55, 56, maybe 60, 5700 RPM. So it doesn't really rev up that high. And I kind of found that out this morning as well, is that when in sports mode with sport shifting on at least the gasoline engine, you would get the RPM to go all the way to the red line, and sometimes just pass right a little bit. Then it goes to the next gear. So you hear that engine really screams at a higher RPM. This one, the diesel kind of does it, not so much. I think it revs up to about maybe 5, if that, and then it just switched to the next gear. So they're kind of weird, where with standard engine, obviously have a longer rev range, and so it takes a little bit longer to go through the gears. So with this one, it just go from whatever idling at about 600 RPM to 5,000. If I remember correctly, I think it was actually shifting at about 4,500 RPM, and so you get this like really short rush. So it goes spin up, and then rev up, and next thing you'll know, you're already in second or third, and it just keeps on going, and it shifts really quick. So unlike the unlike the gasoline engine, and there's a it takes longer to go through all the rev range. With this one it doesn't, which is really interesting experience. I've never actually had a diesel before, so with this one, you know, it's really, you know, I would almost say open my eyes about diesel. I mean, I really don't know much about diesel engines. I know they have a lot more torque at lower end, and they don't have a lot of horsepower. This one is turbocharged, but you know, I can see the difference between the rev range and the, you know, where the torques are coming from, and you know, the way that it accelerates is definitely different. So, you know, we've been driving in comfort mode. You know, we really don't hear, you know, too much of engine. A little bit, you know, I can feel from the steering wheel, I can feel the vibration a little bit. I can hear the engine. It's, you know, definitely a little bit louder than the gasoline engine. But, you know, overall driving experience is not that bad. So I'm actually going to put in sports right now, and we're at a light, so once the light turns green, I'm just going to punch it, and we'll see, you know, the difference. And then right after that, we're going to put it in Eco Pro, which I have kind of driven in Eco Pro a little bit, and it's, you know, very similar to the gasoline engine, where you don't really feel the lag or the drag from the Eco Pro mode. With the sport, man, you get a lot more kick, you know, from just accelerating hard compared to the standard gasoline engine. I mean, it just now, you know, even recording this, I was surprised how much power it's got at lower end, and I think my lunch almost came out. But you know, this is you know, again, a very interesting experience where, you know, you just never experienced diesel before, and then, you know, I'm just kind of shocked about, you know, how much force or how much torque it has. And on the sports display, this thing has that's 4,500 RPM, and it shifts. It doesn't even redline. So I mean, it goes. It really freaking go fast, but it was just weird. It goes from 3,000 to 4,500 RPM. You just hear the needle go up and change, and up and change, and up and change. Versus, you know, in the the gasoline version, where you actually go, you know, probably from 5,000 or maybe 4,500 to 7,000 RPM, or so you have a little bit of, you know, that time to go, you know, and up and down, you know, change, and, you know, red line and change, and red line and change. This is just go red line, no, not red line, you know, 4,500 RPM change, 4,500 RPM change. It's really, really quick, and it feels almost, I would say, almost like a standard normal aspirated V8, which is actually kind of, you know, it's actually kind of exciting. I've actually never, you know, I know I've said this multiple times, I've never driven a diesel before, and so this is a brand new experience for me. And it, you know, with the way it accelerates, I'm really liking this. I think I'm gonna, by the time I get my car back, or even, you know, driving any other gasoline engine, I think I'm gonna miss this acceleration. You know, just, I mean, that puts a big smile on your face. So, you know, it's fun to drive. So we have a light coming up, and, you know, I'm gonna, you know, go turn and you know, drive in this mode a little bit longer. And it does have the sort of a roar to it. It's, you know, not very loud, unlike the gasoline engine, because it does rev much higher. It doesn't have that loud, you know, engine noise, really screaming engine noise at the end where it hits red line. So it doesn't have that. So, you know, you get this sort of low rumble, but, you know, it gets louder by the time you get closer to 4,500 RPM. And you think it's going to keep on going, but it just go, okay, here's the next gear, right? And then it just keeps on going, and it takes literally less than 2 seconds to go to the next gear, and to the next gear, and to the next gear. So it just keeps on climbing, which is actually very exciting. And I'm actually going to see if I can redline this thing with sort of the menu mode, you know, just to sort of get an idea. You know, I'm driving down sort of a long stretch of road, so I can, you know, kind of push this in a little bit harder. But you know, on this one, you don't quite hear the turbo as much. On the X3, the X5, you know, once the engine warm up, you hear the turbo. You hear it spoot up. You hear, you know, the blow off. Not the really the, you know, loud blow off valve, but you can kind of hear the pressure letting go. So you know the turbo is working. This one, even when you push hard, I could barely hear the turbo. So you know, it's definitely, you know, something fun to drive. But you know, again, with BMWs, at least the new X5s, the F15 versions, they tend to be aimed more, you know, with luxury and, you know, comfort ride in mind than, you know, sportiness. But then again, as a BMW, you never really lose all that sportiness. So you know, you have that here, but you don't really have the same feel to it from the 35i, which is the standard, you know, gasoline engine. So we are actually going to try something here. I'm just going to try to get out of this parking lot and you know, get on the long stretch of road and you know, trying to see if I can push or do the manual shifting. So I'm actually going to go into manual third, and then back down to 2, and then down to 1. Let's see if we got anybody here. We'll let that van go. I should probably get in front of them. It's really nice and sunny today, so alright, so here we go. Almost starting from standing still. Oh, well, that's interesting. So I put it in manual mode, and I tried to get it redlining it, and it did for the first gear, and then it did kind of like the sports shifting mode, you know, was automatic shifting, and it hits 40. The next gear, when it hits 4,500 RPM, it just shifts to the next gear. I don't think this diesel engine likes to rev high. I'm just gonna punch it. Oh, I don't know what that. I don't know what that noise is coming from. That is really weird. That noise is annoying. I think that's part of the sunroof that is vibrating because of the wind. That was weird. That kind of messed up my acceleration, I guess. But you know, in no time, I'm at 60 miles an hour. And, you know, once it's up to speed, you don't really feel, you know, much difference at all. So I'll see if I can turn around and push a little bit harder. I think this car may actually need alignment. The steering wheel is not completely straight. I am getting overtaken by a VW diesel driven by an old lady. People really like to drive fast on this road. And I am at 60. The actual speed is 45. So I'm gonna actually slow down. I don't want to get in trouble. So I think at the next line I'm gonna turn around and push it hard again, and just to see. I really like the feel of deceleration at the beginning. That it's the standard engine, gas engine, is definitely lagging that. It's you know, the turbo, before the turbo speeds up, it's, you know, it's like it's no power. It's got no power. It just, you know, kind of chugging along until, you know, turbo kicks in, and you know, you have more boost, and you know, that's where you get most of your power. And you know, until then, it's just like a standard car, a small engine dragging a big beast, you know, heavy SUV. But with this, you know, at lower RPM, you know, you don't feel that lag. You don't feel the you know, the lack of power. It just goes. So I am actually very addicted to this now. So, and as you can probably guess by now, I've not switched into Eco Pro mode yet. I can't get enough of the acceleration. And again, it doesn't have that, because it doesn't rev that high, it doesn't have that, you know, really high whining noise that you get from the gasoline engine when it's at, you know, 7,000, almost 8,000 RPM. This is just, you know, just low tone grunting. And, you know, it's there, you know it's there, you know the power's there, you know, it just pushes you along. You know, it's like, I'm not giving up, and you put your accelerator, you know, all the way down. I'm just gonna keep on going until you run out of gears. That's what it feels like. So so now that, you know, we're staying at about 60 miles an hour, I'm actually gonna put it in standard shifting and comfort, or Eco Pro. So with Eco Pro, it turns on the automatic on and off, engine on and off function. And I don't think there's, I can't really tell if the engine actually quiet out at all. It feels the same. I didn't really notice that it was, you know, that much louder or quieter from different mode. It was definitely louder this morning. I think just because it was, you know, I got to the dealer, you know, almost like the first person. There were literally 2 cars in front of me, and my service advisor had right away gone out and sort of reserved and taken the keys of this BMW and get it ready for me. And, you know, it was actually kind of rough sounding this morning. I could hear the engine quite a bit. I could hear the exhaust note quite a bit. Not so much now for some reason. Maybe the car has some time, you know, to warm up, and, you know, it is a really warm day today. Let's see how the turns. I can't really see the temperature. 58. It's actually not that warm, but inside the car it feels like it's 60 or 70 even. So anyways, I'm in Eco Pro mode, and, you know, like I said, it hasn't really changed much, you know, as far as driving. Obviously it's not, you know, nearly as sporty or aggressive as, you know, the sports mode, but, you know, like I said, just, you know, like the other X5 that I've had, you know, it doesn't drag along. It doesn't, you know, like some of these sedans was, you know, the 20i or 20ai. Once you put it in Eco Pro mode, you know, that engine becomes very, very lazy. It just doesn't seem like it wants to go anywhere. And, you know, you're cruising along, let's say at, you know, 40 miles an hour, you would, you know, feel like the engine is, you know, not pushing, not doing anything at all, and the car's, you know, kind of wanted to sort of slow down quite a bit. With this one, I'm cruising at, you know, 40 miles an hour. I, you know, let go of the accelerator. It just, you know, it cruises along just fine. Doesn't slow down. You know, doesn't use that, you know, regenerative braking or you know, energy recovery. I think, you know, doesn't work quite the same way. It doesn't feel like this is dragging its feet. I know that the newer BMWs, you know, you actually charge a battery, partially charge a battery from braking to recover energy from that. And you know, with Eco Pro, I am currently at about maybe 1/3 of a tank left. It says I just gained 0.3 miles, and looks like you have over 200 miles range. I mean, obviously with Eco Pro mode, you don't get the same acceleration, that's for sure. But you know, for just cruising along, you know, going from point A to point B, this is quite comfortable. And the engine went off. So, you know, I think in my previous video, I've, you know, said that the auto start stop, you can definitely feel it. With the gasoline engine, you don't feel it nearly as much. There were times that I couldn't, I mean, I couldn't really hear the engine to begin with, so I couldn't really tell if the, you know, when the engine was actually stopped. I mean, I can see the RPM gauge or the tag, you know, to see, well, there's no RPM at all, then I know the engine stopped, and, you know, the little green light that comes on. But with this, even with, you know, Eco Pro mode, everything's sort of smooth, and I know for sure that engine had just stopped, and and it just started, so it's definitely louder. but you know, that's sort of the characteristic of the diesel engine. But you know, once you start driving, it's not so bad. I mean, I think my 2011 X5, the E70 model, you know, in sport mode, or when I push it real hard, it's definitely louder than this car. That's for sure. I definitely get a lot more exhaust note. Engine screams quite a bit, especially when you're, you know, redlining it. So you know, this isn't bad at all. You know, I really don't want to spend too much time, you know, talking about the interior, because this is exactly the same as the last one that I had. You know, which is that I think it had white interior versus black, but you know, all the dials and all the screens and speakers are in the same place, and you know, it's exactly the same car. Even got the same wood veneer panel pieces. And again, you know, the difference between this version and mine, the E70, between E70 and F15, is that the newer F15 versions, their steering wheel is so light. This just does not have the same type of resistance that you get from, you know, traditional mechanical steering rack. You know, but it actually gave decent feedback. I can't say this is the best steering, but with the X5, it feels heavier. Ooh, that's a big puddle. My father's X3, I think for some reason those are really, I mean, they're even lighter than this, and so you know, it feels like you're just flowing. You're not really, you're floating on air. You're not really, you know, driving. You know, you don't feel the road conditions. You don't really know what the, you know, tires are doing. This at least, you know, have some kind of vibration, have some kind of feedback, you know, of the road surface you're driving on, you know. But it's again, compared to the E70 X5, this is super light, and you know, so it's a lot easier to do one-hand turns, you know, when you just kind of, you know, roll around on your steering wheel, and you know, just make it turn, you know, without, you know, really putting any effort in at all. And it does have a little bit of resistance, but you know, not nearly as much as that you get from the E70. The E70 is it's almost impossible to do one-hand turn. So you can't just spin the steering wheel like you know, there's no resistance at all. But other than that, you know, this is, like I said, it's pretty much the same, almost exactly the same as the 2016 X5, you know, the standard gasoline engine. But you know, here's a stop sign. Let's see if the engine stops. Yeah, there it goes. So, you know, once it stops, you know for sure that there is no vibration. You know the engine is stopped until, you know, it starts again. So, but you know, this is, you know, that's a trade-off, I guess. But I think you do get much better gas mileage. I have to check. I wonder if this one's got two different buttons. Ooh. That's weird. It's got two different buttons. That was weird. I think I just turned on the fog lights. Actually didn't. I don't know what that button was, but the top one's telling me. I got 232 miles to go. Say it only gives me the instant gas LPG. It doesn't really show me the cumulative one. So let me see if that shows somewhere else. I think it does show in the vehicle information, so you can trip the computer. Let's see. So according to this, I am getting 24.6 mpg. That's pretty good, and that's pretty much from my driving. or is it? Let's see, starting time. No, that's not from my driving. It's the last time it reset was 4,500 miles ago. So I'm gonna actually reset this, and so that gives me a little bit better MPG reading. And so I am currently again in Eco Pro mode. So what I'm gonna do, if I don't have to return this over the weekend, I'm probably gonna try to see if I can drive in sport mode for the most part, or as much as I can, and then that gives the MPG reading, and then we can find out how much diesel it uses, and then compared to the gasoline engine. I think the gasoline engine I've had before, the 35i, I was driving quite a bit using the sport mode, and I was getting about roughly 18 MPG, which is actually not bad considered. It's a big car and I'm driving it hard. With mine, especially with the winter wheels on, I was getting 15.5. If I line up a little, I might get 16, but I've never ever seen above 20. Even driving on a highway, maybe the instant MPG will be over 20, but the overall, I don't think I've ever seen over 20. So this one, as of right now, I am in still again Eco Pro mode, and I'm getting 26.7, and it's going up. It just went up to 27. But then again, that also depends on how fast it was going, and it's telling me that the average speed is 19.4 miles per hour. Driving for about a minute now. The MPG just went up to 30. So that's ridiculous for an SUV this big. This is probably somewhere between 4,500 to 5,000 pounds, and all-wheel drive. And it's decent sized engine. It's not a small engine. It's still 6-liter. It's got a turbo on it, and it's got decent horsepower, definitely ton of torque. And it's cruising, getting 36 MPG. That's ridiculous. And it just went up to 37. How cool is that? So the other thing that I just want to mention, I think a lot of diesels these days comes with 18-inch wheels. I think this one has it too, which looks kind of small for my taste. I actually recently put on my 20-inch option wheels that not from BMW. It's actually made by OZ Sport. It's super light, and it drives really well. I can feel the road, so it's definitely different. With 18-inch, the ride is very comfortable. I can barely, I do feel bumps and this and that, but not very harsh. The 20-inch that I have, I can literally feel every single bump on the road, and it's red flat tire, so it is hard, really harsh ride. But that's what I choose to have, and just gotta deal with it. So I think overall this is pretty much it for now, and any more experience that I have, I will try to add more reviews or add more feel or driving experience to this, if I can. The things these days are definitely spoiling me. I know for sure that I am not as a good driver on the road as I used to be, because I think depending too much on these sensors nowadays. It's got backup sensors, it's got radars, it's got cameras and everything. I will say this though, it's not really bragging. Well, actually it is kind of bragging. I went to a go-kart racing event, and I was placed second. So I did okay on the track, just not not daily driving. So, all right, well, I hope you enjoy the review, and you know, if anything else I can think of, and I will add it to a later video.